Hello, music lovers. I'm Andrew, and I love playing music, especially the saxophones. What I thought of recently was a new idea for a video series of playing different music books. I'm going to start with one that was my first upon re-entry into music. It is Marcel Mule's Etudes. And what I thought would be slightly different, or at least something I haven't seen yet, maybe somebody else has done it, is to take one exercise within that book and share some ideas I've either learned from other people teaching, things I've put together from my own lessons with one-on-one instruction to help make it a little richer for people practicing at home. How can you focus your practice, be more intentional about what you do? So today we're going to start with Marcel Mule's Etudes. I think I'm probably going to pick the first one, and I'm going to share some ideas and nuggets on how you can really practice and be purposeful about what you're practicing. One thing I love doing is adding games. So as I mosey, when I think about practicing, I learned this from attending the Midwest clinic a couple years ago from a couple educators on the East Coast. They talked about practicing with a purpose. So being intentional about what you're trying to practice. That could be several things. That could be the tempo. That could be the rhythm. That could be articulation. Uh, Tone, pitch could be another one. One I haven't figured out too much would be texture. The Mule etudes, very often they say to play something sweetly. So what does that mean? So that's something I'm working on all the time, of trying to interpret how I'm playing and how that comes across in the sound that I produce. But from here, I'm going to kind of just play along one of the items and show some different tips and tricks on what I've figured out for how I practice. But also, this is helpful for me to be more accountable to how I'm practicing. Very often I pick up my horn, put the neck on, put a reed in, and I just start playing. And then the time goes by and I'm like, I don't know if I got any better. And so from there, how can I be practicing with more purpose? So that's the intention of these videos. And it helps me dip into some of those books I've been collecting over these past 3 years playing the sax and share them with you, hopefully inspire you to pick up a different book and have a method to how you play some of these method books. All right, so with that, let's get rolling. The first etude from Mule, if you haven't seen Marcel Mule before, that's a new name to you. This is what it looks like. He was French. He's one of the first saxophone kind of teachers that came up with these different etudes to build technique. And one thing that occurred to me, this was the first book that I worked on with my teacher, Joe, 3 years ago, and kind of just worked our way through it. So one of the things we did was we'd focus on maybe one etude a week, or if it was taking me a little longer to figure out some parts, maybe one etude every month. And so the uh, volume of etudes or the speed that you go through etudes doesn't totally matter. It's moving at your own pace. So the first etude, we'll take a look at it. I'll play it once, or I'll try to play it once and find a tempo that works for me. That's one of the other things I've learned. Start first with tempo. Every etude has a suggested tempo, the speed at which you play it. Maybe dial that back. Find something that's comfortable for you to play the entirety of the piece. This is something I'm very bad at, full disclosure. So find a comfortable tempo that you can play the piece cleanly. And then what I try to do is focus on one element. One thing I like to do to make it more fun is add this. I'll share a link in the description so you can use this too. The notion of, what do I practice? What do I focus on? There are all these different layers to music, but how do I isolate one for that day's practice? I often trip myself up of trying to do all the things and then beat myself up of like, oh, I didn't play that cleanly. I forgot to articulate. I didn't play the dynamics. It had a crescendo and I missed it. So maybe just isolate one item for today's practice. Let's spin the wheel and see what we're focusing on today. Big money, big money, big money. Hope it's not texture. It's going to be texture. Okay, so that's a little trickier one to practice for me, but I'll work on it today. So the notion would be, if you're working on tempo, how do you focus just on tempo? That might be starting with a metronome. That's something I never used to practice with when I first started playing music many, many years ago. I never played with a metronome, and I never played with a tuner. Might explain some things. But then upon re-entry into music, I got a tuner metronome app And almost every time I play, I'll use one or both of those tools to help me be a better player. If we're working on tempo, let's just pretend that wheel spun and it went on tempo. I'll pick a beats per minute. Let's say something pretty conservative. Let's say 60 beats per minute. It might feel very slow, might feel fast for you, but I will pay extreme attention to if I'm landing on the beat. That helps me then focus my practice for that period of time. And maybe it's 10 to 15 minutes of your daily practice, focusing just on tempo, just on this one etude, just on this one exercise. And then tracking, how does that go? Were you able to hit those beats correctly? Were you able to count in your head as you played? That was something that took me probably a year and a half and maybe still working on for different subdivisions. So let's take a look. I'm going to play through the first etude in Marcel Mule's book of etudes. And I'm going to focus on tempo. So here we go.
All right, time to practice. I have my metronome set to 60 clicks. I have the etude up. I'm gonna put in my ear protection. Always important, protect your ears, especially when playing. Do a quick tuning. This is concert A. All right, ready to jump into the etude. And for today, we're going to focus on tempo. So we're starting at a comfortable, hopefully, tempo of 60. I'm going to play it once through. And then the notion would be to flag, were there any spots that I could use more practice to isolate? One thing as well that I've learned too, before you start playing, take a look at the etude. Are there spots that you think might be tricky for you? Maybe highlight those or flag those and start there. But usually when I jump in, I try and play something all the way through just the first time at a comfortable tempo. All right, so 60 clicks. This is the first etude from Marcel Mule. Focusing on tempo. All right, I caught myself. I was going too fast. Let's start again. So that's the first line. I noticed I was rushing a couple bits. I was also trying to play some of the other dynamics. So let's play it again. 60 clicks, just the first line, focusing on the tempo and hitting the different beats. 1, 2, 3. So that time I was making sure to go all the way through the beat. I was listening to myself, I was playing something and I was cutting some of the notes short of the half note or the quarter notes, and then that final full note, whole note. So let's click up a couple, since we're focusing on tempo. Depending what metronome you use, there are different tricks you can do. So I was starting at 60. Maybe I want to go up to 65. I'm going to go up to 70 just for the sake of keeping this movie rolling. So now we go back to the etude. This is now 70 clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. 76. So that one felt better to me. So I'll click it up to 76, which is the listed tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. All right. So I hope that helps. That's the idea here. So Marcel Mule, that's the first etude. I was just playing the first line, focusing on one item, on the tempo. If I instead spun the wheel and I wanted to focus on dynamics, I would try and really exaggerate those crescendos and decrescendos and focus just on that. So I hope that helps. That's the first idea that came to me. Marcel Mule was one of the first books that I played to be more intentional about our practice. I hope this inspires you to pick one of your books, whether it's Marcel Mule, another book that you have of exercises and etudes. Focus on one element, dial back that tempo, and just get to work and enjoy the sound and the fun of playing. Happy practicing. Bye. All right, we got a little bonus feature for you. I'm showing an app that I use for my metronome and tuner needs. This is TE Tuner. At first, I'm setting the metronome down to 60, and I change that subdivision to quarter notes. A feature I love is this metronome assistant. You can have it automatically step up the tempo. And what I set up here was to go from 60 to 80, increments of 5, and then changing every minute. So every minute, it would go a little faster, 5 clicks faster. So 60, 65, 70, up to 80. Fun way to then train my ears to listen for the beat while still playing. So this is a fun trick to use this app for that. The other bonus feature is this random beat silencing. If you turn this on, it will mute the beat from time to time. You say how often you want it to silence that beat, and then it will randomly shift when it silences. These are two features I love using for my practice to help me train my ears, but then also make sure I'm playing in time for my tempo and my rhythm. So double bonus there. All right, enjoy that. Take care.